Hi guys, Ray here from City Fan TV. Hope you're all doing very well indeed. Very pleasant early evening here today in Northern Ireland. Well, you can't see it. Turn around, you might just be able to see Loch Ness. I think that's how you say it. Over there in the background, the biggest, if I remember correctly, the biggest freshwater lake in the United Kingdom, maybe even the British Isles. So yep, very nice scenery around here as I bring you another video. And guys, anybody new to the channel, it would be fantastic if you could subscribe, and if you can hit that bell icon, hopefully you'll be notified as soon as new videos come out. Right, today I want to talk about Romeo Lavia. Romeo Lavia, the Belgium kid. Now, a lot of fans, probably a small proportion of the overall global City following, but a decent number of fans are very unhappy and frustrated at the news that this kid quite probably will be going to Liverpool. Liverpool had a £40 million bid rejected by Southampton. They've come back, I think, today with a £45 million bid. Southampton want 50 million quid, which is, hey, that's only their right to demand what they want for the player. And I've got a feeling if the £45 million isn't accepted, Liverpool will come back again. I mean, come on, cheapskates. The club want 50 million, just pay them the money. You're 10 million short, just pay them the money, get it done, get moved on. I mean, Romeo Lavia, good player that he is, he ain't no Jude Bellingham. And all these in-the-know Liverpool fans and accounts were telling us for a year that Bellingham was going to Liverpool. That never happened. But here's the thing, even though City will get, I think, 20% of the fee because we have a sell-on clause. We sold him to Southampton only last summer for about 10.5 million pounds. 20% sell-on clause would mean that if he's sold for 45 million, we get another 9 million. If he's sold for 50 million, we get another 10 million pounds, which is, you can look at it and say that's pretty good business from City. You know, getting 20 million quid on a kid, that cost them virtually nothing. But here's the thing, he's worth 50 million quid at the moment, and he's 19 years old. He's had one, not even full season in the Premier League. He's played about 2/3 of the league games or something like that for Southampton. I can't remember the actual number, 26, 28 or whatever it was. So on that basis, his valuation has gone from 10 million to 50 million pounds. Now, we do know that, you know, sometimes transfer fees and valuations are basically way too high. They're exaggerated. But if Liverpool, they've offered 45 million quid. So they must think the kid's worth at least 45 million quid, if not a little bit more. And I think why City fans are unhappy, some City fans are unhappy, and I'm a little bit frustrated myself, you know, can't be among them. I'm not going to be as vociferous and negative as they are, or they have been on social media. But my feeling, I think the feeling is, why isn't this kid at City? Why isn't he playing for us? You got a 50 million quid kid who looked pretty good at Southampton. He's 19 years old. He's not 20 till, I think, January. He's got tons of potential. And instead of Romeo Lavia, we've got Kalvin Phillips. And here's another one where the fans have not been too pleased about what Kalvin Phillips has done for Manchester City. Because let's talk about Kalvin Phillips for a little bit. He's been bobbins. I've always said you've got to give players a second year. You've got to give them that chance. But look, it doesn't look good, does it? Kalvin Phillips came to us for about 40 odd million quid from Leeds. Look, he's an England player. He played in the Premier League. He came as expected to be an understudy to Rodri, who was playing probably a few too many games. And you know, you'd think Kalvin Phillips would fit into the City side and would still carry on doing well because he's surrounded by top-class players. And I always believe if you're surrounded by top-class players, you look better than you possibly are. And if you fit in, it'll kind of be sort of semi-seamless. So Kalvin Phillips is here. But the problem is, for Kalvin Phillips, he didn't even start a league game last season. He didn't start a league game last season until we'd won the Premier League title, until it was clinched. And he hardly played at all. So he had this shoulder problem. He was unfit. He came back from the World Cup. He took the maximum time he could, apparently. He was given time off, even though he didn't play for England, I don't think, in the World Cup. He was given the time off, and he took it, and he came back, apparently, slightly, maybe not much, but slightly overweight. Now, Kalvin Phillips, and there's obviously been talk about maybe him moving on. And when we put that bid in for Declan Rice, well, what else would you be putting the bid in for Declan Rice for? If where would that have left Kalvin Phillips? And I thought if we'd got Declan Rice, Kalvin Phillips, for me, looked like we'd move him on possibly to West Ham. So, as I said, he hardly figured us all last season. He said, look, he came to City to win trophies. The treble sorted that out. He's got the trophies, but he wants to play more. He talked about his injury with his shoulder and, other injuries and lack of fitness, whatever. But the thing is, the truth of the matter is, come the business end of the season, Rodri just carried on playing. Pep didn't trust Kalvin Phillips. And that's the long and short of it. He didn't trust Kalvin Phillips. And to be honest, we ended up at the end of the season with when we had Rico Lewis, who played started off at fullback but moved into midfield, inverted fullback. Johnny Stones did the same role. Other players have done a similar role, and you think to yourself, where does that leave Kalvin Phillips? He can't get in ahead of Rico Lewis, who played there. He can't get ahead of Johnny Stones, who's played there. Even you can put Bernardo there. Kalvin Phillips was just totally, pretty much ignored. And I think that's where the double ire comes from. That Lavia basically wasn't given a chance. We got Kalvin Phillips, which helped push Lavia out the door. And we are left with Kalvin Phillips, this 45 million pound so far flop. And Lavia has gone on to stellar things. He's looking at a 50 million pound move to Liverpool. Now, Kalvin Phillips, as I said, you've got to give players a second year. You've got to give them a chance, okay? Grealish's second season was, in my opinion, better than his first. You've got to give players time. Now, unfortunately, Kalvin's had time in the pre-season. He's played, if I remember correctly, 125 minutes of football. He's not looked very good at all. He's not shown anything. His control hasn't been good. He's just not looked, certainly not a City player, let alone top-class Premier League player, which is what he's supposed to be. He's playing for England, it's in the England squad regularly. So you'd think he'd be better than he is, but he isn't. Put that all together. He said he's not going to leave. He wants to give it that second season. And as I said, put it all together. Fans are not happy now. The reason Romeo Lavia, I guess, moved on was some of it is... Look, I've said it time and time again. It is understandable why some of the reasons why he moved on. But you've got to realise, as an 18, 19-year-old kid, players develop at different times, okay? Some players come through as precocious talents, like you got your Michael Owens and Ray Rooney's and whatever. Other players are slower burners, but they've got talent, but it might take a little bit longer to come through. Look at Jamie Vardy. He came through in his late 20s, really, to obviously steer Leicester City to the Premier League title back in, 2016. So Lavia, look, we got Lavia from Anderlecht. We got him because we obviously thought he had something about him. We obviously thought he had that potential. You don't bring players in for no reason at all. So we obviously thought he had something about him. Okay, but you've got this problem at City, and it's understandable. We're chock-a-block full of top talent. It's very difficult for young kids to come through. Cole Palmer struggling to get through because look who's ahead of him. We've got people like Foden, Alvarez, we had Gundogan, we have KDB, we have Bernardo Silva, we had Mahrez, and Cole Palmer's fighting amongst all them to get a chance. So it isn't easy to break through at City. So it would never have been easy for Lavia to break through at City for that very reason. The kid wants to play. That's normal. It's understandable. It's natural. The kid wants to play football at the top level or at a higher level than playing with the EDS. He'd outgrown the EDS, so you've got to do something. And so and plus the fact that we bought Kalvin Phillips. So for whatever reason, City didn't think he was ready, or didn't think he'd be ready that quickly, because when we sold him to Southampton, we did have a buyback clause. Now, I don't know what the buyback clause was. Let's say it was 30 million or 40 million pounds. Someone might be able to tell me what they believe it is in the comments below. But that buyback clause, I don't think, kicked in until next summer. So we thought it'd take him time to be in a position to be considered to be brought back. Can't happen now by the looks of things. He's going to be sold. It's a real bummer that he might be end up being sold to Liverpool and end up coming back to haunt us. It's frustrating. A 19-year-old kid. I don't think he's going to be rubbish. We've already seen in the time he spent at Southampton, he does look pretty good. He looks composed. For a team that went down, he still looked a pretty decent player. But you've got to accept this is the way City do business. It is the way we do it. And I think the way I'm looking at it is that the kid was coming through maybe not as fast as required to be kept around. Look, Cole Palmer stayed around with the first team for the last 2 seasons. Foden did when Foden came through. He only played, I think, 5 games this first season, and about 15 or 13 in his second season, league games that is. So we kept them around the first team to train with the first team, learn under Pep. And for whatever reason, they didn't believe Lavia, it was the right thing to do for Lavia. So he was sold on. And you're not going to get everything right. So just accept it. You can't get every single decision you make right. I mean, ask yourselves in your own lives, you've had big decisions. Have you got them all right? I bet you haven't. No one can get everything right. So I've got to accept that on balance, overall, City have done really well with the way we've done our transfer business, buying and selling players and letting younger players go. Because very few have come back to haunt us. Angus Gunn, no. Sancho, no. Okay? Other players we've let go, you probably won't even heard of them. Bersant Selena, who's he? Enisu now, who's he? So we've sold, we're selling about £50 million worth of kids every summer. And so far, no one's come back to haunt us. No one has come back and we say, wow, we really missed out there. Sancho is slightly different because even though United did pay 70 odd million quid for him, Sancho wanted out. He forced his way out. And that's a slightly different thing. We did not want him to go. So generally we don't make a mistake, but as I said, you've got to accept that from time to time, you can't get everything right. And if we get a lot more right than we get wrong, then we carry on moving forwards and we carry on being a successful team in the Premier League. And hopefully, once again this year, I would love it. I'd love it if we could win that Champions League title back to back. Guys, if you are new to the channel, would be fantastic if you could subscribe, and if you can hit that bell icon, you'll be notified as soon as new videos come out. We'll see you around Blues.